All right, good morning, church. It's good. Thanks for worship, guys. That was awesome. Thanks for leading us in worship. You know, today Marty is not here this weekend. He's in Africa. He's in South Africa preaching and strengthening the churches over there. And so tonight, or this morning, you have me, which I'm excited about. You know, come on. My name is Ernest Torres. I do lead the campus ministry and the YoPro ministry. And come on, campus and YoPro, where are you at? Yeah. There you go. And so turn your Bibles over to Mark chapter 9. And we'll get started here.
Let's go, Ernest.
And it's been fun. Marty, kind of the theme that we've been having this year is just a Jesus theme. And everything we're going to read is Jesus is going to say, we're going to make sure we read about Jesus. And last week, I know he did it. We've been looking at Jesus and his conversations with people, and how these conversations look, and what we can learn about these really intense conversations he has. And I know last week Marty did it on the woman at the well, and so this week we're going to look at an evil spirit and his conversation with the Father and with the disciples. So in Mark chapter 9 and verse 14, it says, when they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. So a little bit of context before we fully begin. There was just the transfiguration just happened before this. So Jesus is like on this incredible mountain. He's on this mountain, and he's with Elijah and Moses. Pretty intense. And he has 3 of his disciples with him: Peter, John, and James. And so they're on this mountain, and Moses and Elijah appear to them, and they're talking, and the disciples are like, what is happening right now? Like they're spooked out of their mind. They don't even know what to think, seeing these guys. And so now Jesus and these 3 disciples come down from the mountain, and this is where they arrive. They're in this scene right here. So verse 14, when they came to the disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. Jesus isn't like dumb, right? He's like, what are you arguing with them about? He asked. A man in the crowd answered, Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by an evil spirit, by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not. You unbelieving generation, Jesus replied. How long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood, he asked. It has often thrown him into fire and water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for one who believes. Immediately, the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. When Jesus saw that the crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. The deaf and mute spirit said, you deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. The spirit shrieked, convulsed violently, and came out. The boy looked such like a corpse that many said, he's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, this kind can only come out by prayer. You know, we look at this, and it's almost an embarrassing moment for the disciples, isn't it? It's like the disciples have seen Jesus do incredible miracles. Feed the 5,000. Turn water into wine. Do all these great, great, great miracles in front of them. And they can't drive out this demon here. And it's almost like they're arguing with the teachers of the law, like this isn't happening. And like they see Jesus from a distance, and they're like, and it says here they're overwhelmed with wonder, and like they run to Jesus. Like it's like they're like, like, yes, he's come to save us. Like thank goodness. We can't do this, like, Jesus, come do this for us, Like they run to greet him. And it's interesting when you look at this conversation, Jesus comes in there and he welcomes himself into that conversation. They're arguing, they can't perform this miracle. And they see Jesus and they greet him. Have you ever had an interesting conversation and like you're talking with someone, you're kind of like, dude, this conversation's weird. Or maybe you're just like, man, like, can I get out of this? Like, is there any way possible? Has anybody ever been in a conversation like that? I know I have, and I've had some friends. And you're like, you look at him, you're like, dude, he's struggling right now. Like, this is a hard one for him. But it's cool because you see your friend, you're like, I hope that my friend saves me right now. I hope that, man, like, can please relieve me from this conversation. And you're like, hey, Joe, come on in, you bring him in. Like, I almost feel like that's what's going on here. Like, Jesus comes, and they're like, Jesus, like, yes, like, I'm gonna run to you, like, come into this conversation here. And that happens. Jesus is welcomed in there. And they're like, save us, And I think when we look at the situation here, Jesus is interested in what's going on. Jesus is interested. He even asks several questions about what's going on in this situation. And I think about for us in our lives today, there's this situation was tough, guys. Like, you look at this evil spirit, there's some crazy stuff going on. Like, I wouldn't have the faith to do that. And Jesus, he's interested. He wants to help out in this situation. And I think even for our lives and for us today, Jesus is very interested in what's going on in your life today. Jesus is very interested in what's going on in your life, what's happening with your family, what's happening with your work, what's happening with your school, what's happening with your faith. He wants to help. And Jesus, he's the Savior, guys. He's the one that can help out here. The disciples couldn't do it. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times we can try to work things out on our own, can't we? Like, man, I can do this. We got this. But Jesus is the only one that can. He's the only one that can help us do these with these tough situations. Yeah. And you look at the dialogue here. You look at the dialogue, and it's kind of interesting. The Father says, like, your disciples couldn't do it. If I was a disciple, like, dude, we just got thrown under the bus. Man, like, come on now, like, you could have said something else, but like, he's like, your disciples couldn't do this. Jesus asks, what are you arguing about? And so we see how Jesus is concerned here, and kind of referring back to the scripture here, when the evil spirit saw him, it shrieked, like it got scared, like it understood the power of Jesus. It understood who Jesus was. It didn't raise up, it didn't do its own thing, and it shriveled up. And it rolled around, it foamed at the mouth. Yeah. And Jesus asked this question, he goes, how long has he been like this? How long has he been like this? Jesus is concerned here about this boy. He's concerned. He's like, what's going on here? What's happening? And I believe that Jesus feels the same way about our lives as well. That he's concerned. I think about even our desperate situations and where we're at. He puts himself in those situations, doesn't he? He puts himself in situations that we thought that we never could get out of, but somehow he gives us a sign. Somehow he puts someone in our life to help us. Even if the situation is bad, even if it doesn't look good, he really does. He inserts himself into our lives in some way, ways that we never thought he could. Yeah. And it's cool because Jesus isn't even fazed about the situation. Yeah. He's not like, oh my goodness, he's not thrown off by what's going on. He's like, oh this, he's like, that's an evil spirit, like no big deal. That's how he responds. He's not afraid. He invites himself in, and he's concerned. He looks at the situation. He's like, what's going on here? What's happening? And I think about our world today, and I think about people that are concerned about our world. And I remember looking at some videos of just situations where people were hit by a car. And it was like a video camera. And like people just kept driving by. People robbed, and no one chases after them. They just, you see the video camera, and they know what's going on. They know they see they see the situation happening in front of them, but they do nothing. And that's why we see these videos of the people are good people, that they post videos of people doing good. And they're trying to like counter that, right? You've seen some of those videos, but we look at it and we see things happening, things at work, and people doing the wrong, and no one speaks up about it. And Jesus isn't like that. He doesn't look at hard situations in our life and just run. He goes and invites himself in and helps us. And I love that about Jesus. Yeah. That he invites himself into your life. He doesn't just turn the shoulder and think, oh yeah, that's going on. Okay, no big deal. It'll work out for you later. Don't worry. Sure. No, he's welcoming himself into you. He wants to know what's going on in your life. He wants to know. And my question is, do you resist him, or do you welcome him into your life? Do you resist? Oh, okay, God, I know you're trying to show me some things here, but I'm not really ready right now. No, man. Well, let him in. Let him into your life and help you with what's going on in your life. Jesus wants desperately to be a part of your life and my life. Yeah. He wants that. He wants to help. Don't resist him. Maybe he's putting people in your path so that he can help you. Has anybody ever I just met this guy? It's like, why? What's happening, right? Or maybe there's a conversation that you have, and you're like what's going on? Maybe God's putting people in your path to help you. Maybe it's a simple conversation. And I think about spiritual men and women that have been put in my life, and how much that's helped me. How much that's helped me transform the way I live. Transform really these situations that I feel like, man, there's no way this is possible. There's no way to get out of this. But because of what God's done, because of him putting himself in, okay, no, this is possible. I can get out of this. That's right. I can. There is hope. And you look at this bad situation, and with the demon-possessed man. This is the situation. The Jesus, he absolutely inserts himself, but the situation is pretty bad. The father responds, and he almost sounds helpless, doesn't he? He's like, since he's been a child, he's been like this all his life. This evil spirit. He's been with him his whole life. It's almost like this helplessness. And kind of even referring back to the scripture, it says, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by an evil spirit, and it's robbed him of his speech. Whenever it sees him, it throws him into the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid." And Jesus then goes and says, "You unbelieving generation." And in verse 20, it says, So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy, "How long has he been like this?" It has often thrown him into the fire to kill him, to water and fire. You look at it and you're like, it's like, imagine being a father and seeing your son go through this his whole life. Or seeing your daughter go through this their whole life. You would almost feel a sense of hopelessness, wouldn't you? Yeah. Of like, man, I've tried everything. I've tried this, I've tried that to help him, but nothing works. And I think that's how the father was with this. And this guy's drowning, foaming at the mouth, gnashing his teeth. There's anger, And you see that. And the situations in our life, they can look like that, can't they? Situations in our life can look bad. Situations in our life, and I can't get out of this sin, or I can't get out of this relationship, or I can't, and school's killing me right now, or whatever the case may be. Man, our situations can look dear sometimes. They can look helpless. But it's part, and despite the situation, Jesus can always help us. Yeah. That's what I love about Jesus. Despite your situation, despite where you're at, despite where you come from, despite the challenges, Jesus can always help you. Amen. Jesus can always be there for you. Even when we feel trapped, even when we feel enslaved, Jesus can help you. I feel like, man, my marriage it's crumbling, it's hard. Jesus can help you. Man, I feel enslaved to the sin, and it's killing me inside. Jesus can help you. Yeah. No matter what your situation is. Yeah. And I love that about this conversation, is that Jesus does. Anybody know about the American Revolution? A little bit? Oh, okay. No? American Revolution? Okay, a little bit, right here. One. Got the grad student. And so the last battle of the American Revolution was in Yorktown. And the Battle of Yorktown. And it began in September 28th, 1978. Or 1981. 1781. And that's like not correct at all. But it was like this intense battle. Like George Washington had 17,000 troops. And thousands of people have died at this point in the American Revolution. If you study it out, it's pretty fascinating. And General Cornwallis, who is the one in charge of the British Army, has 9,000 troops there. And what's cool is the French begin to help the Americans out in an incredible way. And so the French are working side by side with the Americans. And we circle the British all around town. And we just continually just throw cannons and continually just firing at them until they're depleted. And they begin to flee, actually. But what's cool is that the French, if you didn't know, the French have like this massive fleet. And when the British try to flee and escape, the French are there to cut them off. And this really is like a pivotal point in the American Revolution. This is a point where we like take control. Like there's nowhere they can go at this point. That's pretty awesome. But if we hadn't made allies with the French, that would not be possible. Like literally, like we there's a high chance that we wouldn't have won that war if the French weren't part of it. Come on, French, right? Come on. And on October 17th, that's when the war effectively ended. But this was like a pivotal moment in our American Revolution, like of America. Like we're here because of that, guys. Like you understand that? Like this is a pivotal part of our history. But what's amazing is the battle was won because we had people involved with us. We couldn't do it alone. Yeah. We couldn't. There was no way possible for us to win that war if we fought by ourselves. And I believe the same situation is with us today. That we can't handle these situations that go on in our life alone, guys. Yeah. There's no possible way to have incredible victories for God if we're fighting it by ourselves. Yeah. That God doesn't want us to fight it by ourselves. We're not meant to fight it by ourselves. We're supposed to have people side by side next to us to fight these battles with us. And I want to ask you today, do you have people in your life fighting side by side with you? Do you have godly men and women that you welcome, that you're vulnerable with, that you're honest with, to help you in your walk with God? Wow. And I want to tell you, if you don't, you may be losing the battle right now. Wow. This battle is crucial. The situation here was crucial. And we've got to desperately have people in our life to help us. Yeah. Don't do it alone. Oh. Don't try to do it alone. It's not meant to do it alone. God didn't put us here to fight, to handle these situations by ourselves. I know it can be like, man, Ernest, it's hard for me to be vulnerable. It's hard for me to let people in. Man, it's worth it. It's worth it to let people into your life.
Yeah.
Godly men and women that can help you with these tough situations. Jesus had to get involved here. He had to. The disciples couldn't do it, but Jesus could. And I want to tell you today that the things that are going on in your life, Jesus can do it, guys.
That's right.
Your character, the flaws in your life, God, Jesus can absolutely save you.
Yeah.
You know, what tough questions is Jesus asking you today? He asked some tough questions. And he was interested. He asked questions today. You know, my challenge for you is that we go after it. That, man, guys, that we don't have to let anger control us. That we don't have to let the sin entangle us. You know, and I ask myself, how can I change? I've been like this since I was a child. It's kind of interesting. It's like he's been like this since I was a child. Like it goes back. It's not just the immediate,
Right.
but who you are as a man and woman. Then we can. It's pretty intense if you think about that. Like, man, we can have this excuse like, I've been like this since I was a child.
Wow.
This has been a part of my life since this time. But I say God can absolutely help you.
That's right.
He can absolutely help you. This is the only, man, and it's amazing, even in my life, the things that he's done. You know, he has the power, not us. And I think Jesus doesn't look at actually your actions as much. He does. But he actually first looks at your faith. He doesn't actually address their actions. You don't see them. He addresses their unbelief and their faith. You know, and the situations that happen, it's not necessarily because I've got to do this and I've got to do that. It's because of the lack of faith.
Wow. Wow.
And that's really my second point, that it's not about actions, but it's about faith here. And if you look over in verse 19, in Mark 9, he says, "You unbelieving generation." It's like Jesus is like almost angry at them, right? He's like, "Come on, guys, you can do this." He says, "How long shall I be with you? Stay with you? How long shall I put up with you?" You know, you look in verse 23 or before, it says, "But if you can do anything," and it's interesting, we're going to look at the dialogue of actually the Father and the conversation he has here. He says, "But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." The Father wants help here. And Jesus replies, "If you can?" He's like, "Do you know who I am? Like, do you know what I do? Like, of course I can." And Jesus says, everything is possible. He says, everything is possible for the one who believes. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." You know, and I love this dialogue here, guys. I love it. Because Jesus is looking at his belief, his faith, right? You look at the situations and Jesus is in control, but it's not necessarily the lack of maybe believing in Jesus. Or I don't think it's necessarily like what we can do about the situation, but it's the lack that Jesus can do something about the situation. Is it possible that he can do this? And so our faith plays an enormous key to our walk with God.
That's right.
Our faith.
Yeah.
You know, and he says here, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." There is he is like desperate to believe here. He's like, "Jesus, help me do this. Like, I can't do it. Like, help me." And I think for us, do we have that same heart and spirit? Like, "Jesus, help me. I need your help. I need it." You know, disciples have seen so much up to this point. So much. And I think even for us, we can see so much as well. You know, and this was the missing ingredient here, was faith. This was the missing ingredient. You know, the first time I made Mexican rice, was pretty bad. I remember when my mom makes, everyone says it, but their mom like makes the best rice or whatever, you know. My mom makes the best Mexican rice.
True.
I see some of y'all nodding your head, but it ain't true. And it's cool because I'm like, Mom, you gotta teach me. It's before I went to college. I'm like, you gotta teach me how to make this rice. And so it was cool because, you know, I've seen her do this several times. Like, okay, watch me do it first. And there's like no measurements, right? Like, if you're doing it right, there's not like an ingredient that you need, or like you have like 3/4 of a cup. Like, no, that doesn't exist. And so like I gotta watch my mom and how she does it and this and that. You gotta taste it, you know, here and there. And I'm making it, and she's kind of just watching me a little bit, and I'm like, Mom, this isn't tasting right. Like what is wrong with this thing? And I forget to add like the boil, like the chicken broth. And I'm like, but it looks red because I put the tomatoes and everything else in there. There you go, Christina. And I'm like, what is wrong? I'm like the rice is softening and it's already too late. Like you have to put that stuff in early so it marinates and it holds the flavor. And I'm like, dang it! Like I messed up the rice the first time. You know, like dang it! Like what happened? You know, and this idea of like there's a missing ingredient. You can't miss it. That ingredient matters. You know, I watched this documentary about plane crash, like planes and the accidents of airplanes. So I don't want to scare you here about like planes, but it's crazy. Like it was really interesting because I was watching this documentary and it's different episodes of different scenarios of plane wrecks and people dying. And so, but what's really interesting is that a lot of these plane accidents happen because of mechanical situations that were only like one little thing, and it messed up the whole plane. Like one screw, one like mishap that the engineer didn't do. He thought it was okay, but it wasn't. And people's lives are literally slain because of it. People lose their families because of these situations. It's really eye-opening. And I think about this for our own life, guys. What's the missing ingredient in your life? What's the missing ingredient? Where's your faith with God? And the situations in your life. That's it. And I love he even goes further and addresses prayer. And the disciples are like, how did you do this? Like what happened? And he goes, and he says specifically, this kind can only come out by prayer. And there is a side of faith that we got to have to just go to God on our knees and pray.
Yeah.
We've got to go on our knees and pray about these situations and believe that God can do these things.
Yeah, that's right.
And the actions come with that, guys. The actions come. They have to because you're faithful about it. When something's on your heart, when something's desperately there, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it.
That's right.
Because you are going to God in a desperate way. And I love this because in verse 27, it says, but Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. He was able to be normal again for the very first time. For the very first time in his life, he was able to get up on his feet and be healed. He got up. And I think we've got to get up too and walk with God.
Yeah.
We've got to get up. Be faithful about the situations in your life. Welcome Jesus into your life and see what kind of great things you'll do when you stand up for God. When you stand up and have a deep relationship with him. And we each have different races, each of us. We'll each run it differently. But we got to keep going. We got to go after that crown that lasts forever. And I think this conversation that we have here, and that we see here, is crucial. This changed not only the boy's life, but the father's life as well, the disciples' life as well. And our decisions will do the same thing. Let's be what Jesus called us to be, is be faithful. And be like the Father, and be like Jesus, and go to God. Amen.